Yes.
One more time, Brian.
Testing, testing. Welcome to tonight's Pickens County Commission Chair Debate. I will be your moderator, Brian K. Pritchard. Tonight's debate is sponsored by FetcherNews.com, and you're watching on FYNTV.com. Our candidates tonight, Republican Party candidate Chris Stansel, and running as an independent, David Shouse. Now, a couple notes before we get started for our debate. Registration, okay, sorry about that. Registration to vote, register to vote closes October 5th, all right? Early voting starts October 12th. Saturday voting, one Saturday is October 24th, and then Tuesday, November 3rd is Election Day. Let me give you information out there, because if you have any questions about your registration, how anything works, or where your precinct is to vote, you call the election office at 706-253-8781. We will get started tonight. Our current commission chair, Rob Jones, has served 16 years in Pickens County. The first 8 as a sole commissioner, and the last 8 as commission chair. That leads to our first question, and before we get to our first question, sorry about that, Mr. Shouse, 1 minute to open.
Yeah, I was born in Savannah, Georgia, given up for birth at adoption. After being moved around through over 100 families, I was finally adopted at age 11 by a family in Dawsonville. Age 18, I bought my first house in Pickens County out in Marble Hill. I've lived in Pickens County or within several miles from the county line ever since. I started my security company in the county, which is 22 years old this year. It's grown into a multi-million-dollar business. From single-family homeowners to Fortune 500 companies to some of the nation's top CEOs, we've worked for them. Tasha and I have raised 3 children in the county. Connor and Jax both attend our local school system. Sierra graduated Pickens County High and just gave us our first grandson, Little Easton. I started developing in 2011. It was a byproduct of having a lot of cash and being fiscally responsible through the Great Recession. Since that time, my companies have put dozens of companies in empty buildings in Pickens County. We've resurrected dead deals, including the brand new, much needed Pickens County VA and DaVita dialysis. The first question I ask myself for doing something in this county is it good for this community? I'm not here for self-gain. I'm not here for money. I'm not here for recognition. I'm here to represent 32,000 citizens in a fair, efficient, and financially responsible way. And I'm here to give hope back to this county.
Thank you, Mr. Shouse. Your opening statement, Mr. Stansel?
Hey, I'm Chris Stansel. I was fortunate to be born and raised here in Pickens County. I grew up, was a graduate of Pickens High School. Left to go and attend Valdosta State University, where I earned a degree in criminal justice. I've been fortunate to be married to my incredible wife, Allison, for the last 23 years. This December, we've raised 2 children here in Pickens County, my daughter, who is now a junior at the University of North Georgia, and my son, who is now a senior at North Georgia Christian Academy, and have had the blessing of being able to raise those kids both here. I've been able to work and serve in Pickens County for over 2 decades. I've served in law enforcement, I've served through the Chamber of Commerce, and I've served in a variety of different ministry positions as well. And I look forward to spending time with you tonight. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to the back and forth with the questions.
Okay, and that leads to our first question. And like I said before our opening statement, the current chairman has been here for 16 years. So we're going to start with you, Mr. Stansel, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes here. We're going to have 2 minutes for you to open up here. In 16 years, most of the department heads only know working under this chairman. They've worked here for the 16 years under one chairman. Most of the county employees have worked for the chairman, okay? I would say this is a major transition. This is not just a new chairman taking over. It's a major transition for, 1, the citizens of the county, okay, and 2, the employees and the department heads. So tell us why the voters should pick you to be the next chairman, and everything I said in consideration. How can you assure the transition after 16 years between the citizens of Pickens County, the employees of Pickens County, and the department heads? what does that look like in your administration?
I think we've been fortunate in Pickens County to have some of the best department heads, some of the best staff of all times. I mean, if you take a look at what they do for as little as they're able to do it for, has been phenomenal. We've got department heads in a variety of different divisions. I know some are new, some are old, and so the only person that they have worked directly under would be the chairman that's there. I fully support the department heads that we have. I fully support our staff. I fully support what they do. I believe I bring in a new style of leadership. I don't think that it's a new direction as much as it is a style in terms of trying to support, trying to build up, trying to encourage, but also trying to offer challenges and offer incentives for those that do succeed, that those that do push forward, and that they show that they're fiscally sound with how they manage their budgets within their departments. And we'll continue to do that. I think that new style of leadership might be something that's welcome for some. I think for others, they've had a great relationship with the chairman and worked with him and know exactly what to expect, and so that's something that they can continue to do. I think that we can continue to move forward with creating the most professional environment with the staff that we have. We can continue to be professional. We can continue to offer fair service to everyone. We can continue to make sure that we're consistent in all that we do through creating policies that make sure that we're always doing things the same, regardless of who's coming in and whatever department that might be, whether it's in the zoning office or if it's just somebody walking into the front office to gather information, that we're constantly focused on being professional and being respectful, and that we offer consistent, fair service for everything that we do. And I think that's something that we can all rally behind. I will from day one come in and have the backs and the support of our staff and of our employees. So I will do all I can to work with them all the way through.
Mr. Schaus, the same question, and I just want to reiterate, just to make it fresh, this is a big change in the county, 16 years. The CEO, the commission chair is the CEO of the county manager, and this is a big change for department heads coming in, employees, and the citizens. So do I need to repeat that, or
No,
can you
not at
give
all.
me 2 minutes your direction?
Well, number one, Chairman Jones was gracious enough to invite me over Monday, and I spent about 18 hours with department heads and some employees. And the number one reason that the transition will be easy, they want to work for me. That's the number one. There's a lot of tension right now between Mr. Stansel and his department. I don't think they want to work for you. I don't think they trust you. And I think there's going to be a lot of animosity there, a lot of problems from the get-go. And in fact, you may not have the employees you think you're going to have. Mr. Jones, I think he served 16 years, which is quite commendable. After going and spending 5.5 hours just in his office and questioning him and trying to learn what he does every day, I think all in all, he probably did a pretty good job. As a leader of the county, you're going to, and I think Mr. Stansel's going to have this problem as well, you're always going to hurt someone's feeling with a decision. You're not going to be the nice guy every single day. You're always going to make someone ill. Whether it be a road, whether it be whatever. But the main answer to your question is the employees want to work with me. You can go do your own homework on it. The tension, and also I think through Mr. Stansel and his department, there's been a serious lack of transparency, a serious lack of honesty, and I think that's going to carry over into our chairman position, and we're going to go backwards very, very quick.
All right, Mr. Stansel, let me follow that up because, Mr. Schaus, I've watched several of your videos. I went on your website and I watched a lot of your videos. And on your website, you have on there, you have transparency in all aspects of government. Okay, and this is as Chairman Chris Stansel will focus on. That's from your website, right? So transparency in all aspects of government. Mr. Schaus says lack of transparency and honesty. What say you with that kind of comment concerning? Now let's be clear for those that may not know. The department that you're talking about, the office, are you talking about the sheriff's office?
Yes.
Okay. So you do work for the sheriff's office since 2008, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be what you're talking about, correct? What say you on what Mr. Schaus just said?
Yeah, I've also met with the department heads. I've also met with Chairman Jones. We spent the day over in multiple offices about a week ago. As far as transparency, I believe the voters just spoke. I'm not here to run for sheriff. I'm not here to try to do anything to run for his office. The sheriff ran for re-election, and he won with about a 75% victory. So in terms of his office and how he runs his office, I understand completely that the voters spoke that they wanted to keep him in place. As far as me and the divisions that I oversee, I have handled overseeing community relations, I've handled overseeing our administration, our internal affairs, I've handled overseeing professional development, overseeing all of our new hires, all of our development for recruiting. I've also helped to oversee all of our public information that's there and have been nothing but transparent. There are many times we'll receive questions that you can't release that information because of the laws and the way that the laws are set. There's never been a day that I've not been transparent. That's the same transparency I will carry forward in everything. I don't believe anything should be done behind doors. I believe everything should be done in the open unless there's some legal reason that something has to be done behind doors. I'm 100% transparent. I believe in that all the way through. I came into this with my integrity, and I'm going to leave with my integrity. I'm not going to leave that behind.
Thank you. Elaborate. You made an accusation. Elaborate. Tell me if I'm correct here. You said lack of transparency, lack of honesty. Am I correct?
Well, it just goes.
Can you elaborate so he can answer that?
Absolutely, on the transparency. It goes as Mr. Stansel says, I'm going to answer every question. I'm going to be transparent. There's members in this audience here that have asked very specific questions. You came out and said, you're going to create jobs, you're going to do this, and people asked you specifically, how specifically are you going to do this? You ignored it, and then they put a question mark, and you ignored it again. And don't say you didn't see it because people tagged you. You see everything. You have your minions running around and reporting to you. So don't act like you didn't.
Okay.
You got to answer the questions. You're fixing to be employed by 32,000 people. You don't get to run behind the doors and have your little group talks.
Would you like to respond?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I would very much like to respond. I've been transparent in everything. I've answered questions over and over again on my page. I do not go on to other forum pages, and I don't get into the online debates. I believe this is a professional, serious position that we're running for, and I don't believe getting into debates back and forth on Facebook shows that level of professionalism. I have answered questions. If the individual that you're talking about that's in the audience had ever called me, had sent me an email, had reached out to me, I would have sat down and talked to him anytime he wanted to. But it was someone that was 100% already had his mind made up, that was endorsing you as a candidate, and it was a baited question. So I ignored that question and moved on and continued to answer questions that people sent me. I answer questions every single night, by phone, by Facebook, by email. I don't ignore them.
Okay, I want to go with a minute and a half on this one, Christopher, our timekeeper. Minute and a half, and I want to stay in this, but I want to move to. You said in one of your videos, and as we are talking about transparency, you said in one of your videos that it has come up during your campaign, during the primary, while you were campaigning, that you just are running so you could be favorable to the sheriff's budget. Tonight's not the first time you've heard that, correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Answer that.
Yeah.
Minute and a half.
One is just simply not the case.
I guess,
I'm not.
excuse me, I don't mean to be rude. Take that question and separate yourself from the sheriff's office and let the voters know how you can be transparent in setting that budget and treating that budget no different than any other constitutional officer. Sorry for being rude, but
Yeah,
go ahead,
that's
Dick.
fine. I think part of it's just understanding the role and the job. The chairman does not set the budget. The chairman works with the Board of Commissioners, who also works with the CFO to set the budget. The one thing that I would like to see changed, and it's for all constitutional officers, it's all elected officers, would be for us to be able to start these conversations earlier in the year, that we start meeting with department heads and elected officials throughout the year so that we understand the needs, we understand the problems, we understand the concerns, not only for the upcoming year, but for future years, that we do strategic planning to move 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road so that we're not trying to get everything in 1 year. I have zero. My opponent jumped out recently and made a comment on somebody's post where the sheriff will receive way more money if he's elected than if I'm elected. So he's the one that's promising to give more money. I've made no promises to the sheriff's office that they're going to receive any more other than that they will have a seat at the table. They will be invited to be a part of the process before we reach the final quarter of the year after the millage is set. They need to have an opportunity to come over and present their case like any other constitutional officer, whether that's the clerk of the court, the coroner, any other, the tax commissioner. All of these different individuals need to be able to come and sit down and have those conversations. I think they do a phenomenal job in the finance department, but I also believe that we need to start that process earlier in the year. That doesn't need to wait till the very end. And that's been my one commitment, that's my only commitment when it comes to finances to the sheriff and to the sheriff's office, as to go
I
forward.
want to give you the same minute and a half, and then we can maybe visit both your answers. Constitutional officers, one being a sheriff, the commission sets the budget, but then after that, it's up to them how they handle their budget. What say you? Would you like to respond to his answer, or what say you concerning how you feel the constitutional officers would be handled?
Well, first of all, budget is every day. In our companies, we work on the budget every single day. We're checking, we're balancing, we're making sure everything's in line. I know on Mr. Stansel's webpage, and he's altered it, that he said that he claims he oversees the sheriff's office budget and oversight committee, which we all know is a disaster. They manipulate lines. They know that the employees have to be paid when they rob Peter to pay Paul. And he's evidently claiming that he's on that committee. He's got a very good part of that budget process. So he's trying to, what he can't, a budget that's went from $4 million to $7 million, now he can't manage that properly. He's got a history of not managing other finances personally and such, and now he wants to go and manage a $30 million county budget. It's not possible to do. There's a history here of poor management and poor budgeting, and I never said that I would give the sheriff more money. I said I would give him any money that he needed to do his job and protect our citizens, which I stand by.
Would you like to respond, maybe 45 seconds at least, so we can move
First,
on?
that's simply not true. You did say he would receive more money if you were elected than he ever would if I was elected. But beyond that, my responsibility in the budget is the administrative services. I am overseeing the administrative services aspect of the sheriff's office budget. If you look historically over the last 5 years, it's been at or below budget. We have stayed consistently at or below budget in the area that I'm responsible for. As I said before, I'm not here to run for sheriff. That race was run and it's been won and it's over with. I'm here to run for a completely separate position, and my job in the budget process was to be a part of, as a division commander, setting it. You mentioned my personal finances. We both went through it. We both filed for a bankruptcy. I had mine was successful. You ended up having multiple foreclosures on your property afterwards. So we've both had to see that we could bounce back and we could rebound when we come through it.
You like to respond?
Yeah, there's a
45
correction there. I dismissed my bankruptcy the next day at 22 years old after I realized what it was, because I don't believe in walking away from debt, and I paid every penny over those mortgages after it was proven in court that I was a victim of predatory lending. So before you start putting words in my mouth what's going on, you might want to do your homework.
All right, let's move.
Did you pay your Capital Ones? Did you pay your money? No, you walked away from them.
Okay,
You left
okay.
us paying them.
All right, gentlemen, let's move. We can come back to some of these things, and they may surface again. So let's move to, you did spend a day in county government. Commission, let me get this correct before I move on. Chair Commissioner Jones invited both of you over, correct? To spend a day, ask all the questions you wanted. My understanding from the chairman was that you were allowed to ask any department head questions, spend time with them, right? There was no limits. Come over and see everything going on. So elaborate and get into some detail, Mr. Stansel. A minute and a half. What was that? What stood out to you? What departments did you walk into that, hey, maybe you didn't realize there was that much going on, or it was eye-opener? Elaborate. I'll give you the same time in just a minute, sir, okay?
Yeah. So the majority of the time was spent with Chairman Jones himself. He sat and gave updates and went through and on all the different updates on everything that's been going on in the county. Probably the most eye-opening time that I spent was when I went to the recycling center. I was amazed at how impressive the equipment that they have, at the way in which they've developed that system to where it can be neutral as far as the amount that the revenue that it can bring in, that it can cover the cost for itself. So I was amazed at how incredible that was. I spent time in the finance department and spoke with Ms. Harvey for a long time. I spent time with the water department, and we talked about projects and some of the upcoming things and needs that he thought that were on the horizon that were there. We spent time and talked. I've spoke to other department heads prior to that day that I came over and met, and then I also spent time in the planning and zoning and the busy aspect and how much that they do with how few people, with the number of permits and the number of different processes that were there. It was eye-opening from the sense of seeing how much pride that the employees took, how much pride that the department heads took in their jobs, but at the same time it wasn't surprising because you've been able to see the results. going and seeing the recycling center firsthand and seeing the operation that they've put together was by far the most impressive part that I could say that I spent during that day.
Minute and a half also, you had the same day and the same opportunity. What was your visit to Pickens County Government Day like for you, Mr. Schaus?
My day was different. I went on a different day. But I was so impressed by the professionalism of the department heads, their genuine caring for the community and what they were doing, their passion for what they were doing. One of the things that really took me back, and it was almost like being in a movie, was the hesitancy to say things because of some things that have happened over at this building here we're sitting in, from the sheriff's office, including, I'll just go ahead and put it out there, about a year ago, where there was a third party that came in, where an independent company found and led directly back to Mr. Stansel's computer that you had bugged some of the computers. County attorneys recommended it, keeping it from going public, and blocking the access and sweeping it under the rug to keep from destroying certain families in the county. Pointed right to you. And if you deny it, I'll put it out there. I'm just telling you now. But the employees and the department heads, they're so scared to say anything and scared what they're on their mind because of the retaliation. I don't have anything against the sheriff's department. Don't have anything against the sheriff. But I'm telling you now, there's tension and things are going to go amiss. But the recycling center was very impressive. It's financially neutral. They're also building a tower there to lower our ISO rating. That's very impressive. I'll agree with them on that. I met with airport, roads, water. Everybody has their projects going forward, and what the big problem is growth and infrastructure problems is what we've got to deal with.
I want to get back to this, but would you like to respond
Very
to,
much so, would like to
take a minute and respond to what he just said?
Yeah, the accusation is thrown. I know the party that you're talking to, we spoke. What ended up happening was the same company handles IT from both the sheriff's office at that time that covered the county commission office and the sheriff's office. He logged in to work on a computer in the county commission office, and it came and pinged an IP address at the sheriff's office. It did not ping my computer. We went back and forth. We had multiple conversations back and forth. It was the IT exec that was there. I have never bugged anything. Like I said before, I came into this with my integrity, and I'm going to leave with my integrity. Regardless of how many accusations and lies that get thrown my way, I have never did anything of that nature in any way, shape, or fashion.
45 seconds, follow it up if you'd like.
Obviously, he's not much of an information officer. Two VPNs can't ping two different subnets on two different VPNs. It was in the report, and I'm going to put it out there for you.
Okay, all right. So go ahead, 30 seconds.
There's really not there's nothing to respond to. It's
Okay.
never been done, so it's not something that's even worthy of one.
I would like to hear a little more, and I think they would out there. There's several hundred county employees, and this we're going to get into the entire economic development. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But for example, EMS and fire is the second largest budget in the county, and you actually, that's a department. So we'll start with you, Mr. Schaus. I know I've started a couple questions with you. EMS and fire is the largest department as far as the budget. That is under the commission, but as chair commissioner, you're the day-to-day county manager, and they do work directly for you. How much time have you spent with EMS and fire? How much research have you done? And try to say how you would handle some things that would be a benefit for safety for the citizens of Pickens County.
Yeah, I spent about 2.5 hours with our director of 911 and also our fire chief. 911 has 16 employees. I believe the fire has 84 employees. One of the things that I did notice for revenue is they're only collecting about 63% of our fire ambulance services that's billed out, so I'd like to see that brought up. With the growth, I did talk to the fire chief, and he seems to think that they were ready for an extra fire marshal, and that we could also use a deputy chief. It seems that they're being spread very thin, so I'd like to try to work with them to try to find the money to get that extra help for them. Water's a huge obstacle for them growing, fire hydrants, things like that. But the biggest thing that our fire EMS said to me is they're having problems keeping employees because it's being hindered by retirement plans and the pay. So I'd like to look at some other options there. I can't stand in any business training someone for a year just to see them walk out the door. That actually costs us double, triple, quadruple what it would just to go ahead and pay them right and try to find the money and do whatever we need to do to make them career employees here in Pickens County. I've already talked about that burn tower. On a personal note, I've talked to a lot of the fire and I've made the decision that I would really like to reach out to the city and see them combined, the city and county fire departments. It would allow Tate to drop the ISO of the south end of Jasper down by Racetrack. It would allow the trucks that are over in the city of Jasper not to respond to the Kroger area like they are now, which takes them 12 to 14 minutes. It may be a little added cost to the county, but ultimately I think it would give our citizens better coverage. Probably if you wreck, you're going to wreck on that 4-lane, and it would get you some faster response. That's just a personal thing. I think it would be needed. We need to talk to the citizens and also the city and fire departments. Most of them even suggested we do it. I definitely want to see more manned stations with ambulances. There's some of them that just doesn't make sense and make 3 calls a year, but I definitely want to see more of them manned. I don't want grandma waiting 35 minutes for an ambulance. We only have 3 of them now that are manned. And I'd like to see our responders provided with training for individuals with the autism spectrum disorder. It seems that that's a popular trait right now around the country. Same thing in 911. They're struggling to find employees. They're starting in the $14 an hour. You can go down to Cherokee County, make another $2 or so an hour just from the starting. So we need to look at that. And I would really like to get with ARIS, and which is the amateur radio. We have the antennas at the 911, and make sure that we have a ham radio on site. So when we have natural disasters, things like that, that it's already ready to go. And maybe look at Tate for putting a backup center, which has kind of been in the works for a while, but I'd like to finish that up.
Mr. Stansel, same minute and a half. The largest county budget that is a department is the fire and EMS. How much time have you spent with them and going over their budget and some of the things you think they may need in the future?
Right.
Same minute and a half.
I think that one of the main things that David actually covered in that conversation there is staffing. They do need the same problem as public safety across the board. It's public safety with fire, it's EMS, it's law enforcement. We're the first non-metro county north, so everybody can travel south and make a significantly higher pay in any of those fields, and that's something that has happened as soon as they receive their training. I know with the fire and EMS, a significant number of their employees work 2 different jobs. They work at another fire station, they work at another fire department, they work at another EMS station, and then they work here part-time as well. And so you've ended up having a struggle with trying to keep the manpower. I also understand, like you said, it's the largest budget department within the county. So to be able to bump that budget line item up, that money has to come from somewhere. I do think that there are options. I think that there are things that can be done to try to find funding for that. But I think it's sitting down and going through it with a fine-tooth comb and then looking at what other counties, Cherokee, for instance, enacted what they call a fire tax on your meters for a power meter, and they collect a small fee for every monthly bill of every power meter. That money then can go directly to fire and EMS, so that way it covers and is able to provide it. It's an additional tax, and so I know that's something that's very difficult, but it spreads it out to all meters versus all property owners, and so instead of adding more to your millage, it's adding more in a different category, in a different line item. That's the only way that you're really going to be able to generate additional manpower, is to find a way to put the funds into it to generate that additional manpower. And I'm not for raising taxes. I'm not for it in any way, shape, or fashion. I want to do all that we can to keep our taxes as low as we possibly can. So trying to find a way to man that in the process and to come up with those funds is a top priority.
Okay, would you like to respond to that? And also, while we're talking about that, he brought up the subject of taxes. And I do know when citizens are sitting out there and they're listening, and any candidate starts saying, find the money to help this or find the money to do that, they may be sitting out there saying, yes, I'm usually where the government finds the money. So what say you when it comes to maybe wanting to enhance some of these things, get new equipment and do things, but if you're put in a position like it would be a tax increase. Will you raise taxes on the citizens? I know it's a direct question, but will you raise taxes on the citizens of Pickens County?
I have a plan for revenue that I think we're going to be able to negate that. Don't think I actually know. I don't know if that's another question.
You want to go? You want to go with that in a minute? Okay.
I
Go
do-
back to go back to EMS. We could ask a revenue question in a minute if you'd like to do
I
that.
figured you'd go into economics
Yes,
and stuff,
yeah,
so
okay.
I kind of got that.
All right.
Rather than bounce around. Cherokee County does have a fire millage rate, and I think it's 3.26 to 8.26, depending on which municipality you're in. So that is definitely a bigger tax considering we're in the sevens, so we don't want to do it that way. What I would like to see, though, and Chris and I agree on this, our starting EMTs, I believe, are at 40, and our paramedics are at 44, and we've got some counties that are offering considerable amount and different retirement plans, and we really just need to sit down and negotiate and go through, if we were going through the existing budget, go through it with a fine-tooth comb and try to find some more money to keep these employees. I think Chris would agree with me that when we lose an employee, and I'm sure he does at the sheriff's office, it costs a lot of money to replace them, a lot, and we've got to stop that trend.
I want to move over into economic development. We still have plenty of time here. I want to move over into that, but before we do, I want to maybe finalize talking about department heads, and still, to me, 16 years working for the same chairman. We hear things. People call me. Things go on social media, as you well know. Have you, and I want to 1 minute, as you were looking at the departments, have you looked at any department changes you want to make? Or how can the employees out there know? Is there a plan you're going to put together on how you're going to evaluate the department heads if elected? The employees make decisions on if changes to be made. What can they feel comfortable with from Chris Stansel, knowing if you're the next chairman, that on day one they're not out of a job?
Right. As far as making changes with letting anybody go, there's absolutely no plan to let people go. I've not talked to. I know that the rumors that you're discussing that get to spread around, I've heard quite a few of them. I have no intention to let anybody go. I do know that there have been a couple that have mentioned retirement dates within the next couple of years. So having conversations to try to make sure you're prepared for when those times come, then we could. As far as changes within departments, it's specifically when you take a look, and I know animal control is probably going to be a topic you're going to talk about. I think that the animal shelter and animal control being merged together creates a very unique, difficult situation. Animal shelter employees are there working to try to rescue, they're working to try to pick up animals, trying to rescue animals, readopt animals, do everything they can to work with all the nonprofits that are in place, while enforcement is handled by animal control. And so they've been merged together, they've been kept together for a long time. I would like to see that enforcement aspect moved either under the county marshal's office or find a way that the enforcement is separated from the shelter itself. That's the only department that I've looked at any kind of a significant change in how day-to-day operations would take place over the coming years. But as far as staff, no, everyone's job is safe, 100% safe.
Minute and a half. Do I need to repeat that question for you, Mr.
Yeah, go
Shaw?
ahead. Just get off them.
You know, like I said, 16 years, we have a lot of department heads, a lot of employees. We hear and see what goes on social media, so we're just going to bring it up and let both candidates put it to rest. Is there any department head changes? In a David Schaus chairman administration on day one, do people need to be in fear they're going to lose their job, or how are you going to transition the employees of this county into your administration?
First, in 22 years of business, I've only fired one employee, and he works for me, again. But anyways, I don't like firing people. You're making life decisions, family decisions. But every department head I met with, I was impressed with, and I actually asked them leaving, will you stay with me? I asked them specifically, even the ones that have some retirements, could you give me a couple more years? We don't need, like you said, this is 16 years in the making. To go in there and completely destroy the department heads would just be a disaster. I'm a very, very small piece as the chairman. These department heads have they have their employees, they work with them. I don't micromanage, I don't go around my department heads. I do think that there may be some employees that I've talked to that may do better, may do a better job in different facets or different positions. People do their best work when they're happy and they're doing something they enjoy. And maybe because certain positions haven't been open, they're in a position that they're not totally happy. So maybe we can look at that to get better morale and a little bit more performance out of them. Going to the animal shelter, I'll just be frank, I'd like to sell that building. There's some people that like to buy it. We have 5 acres behind this building. We have the new recycling 18 acres. I'd like to build a nicer building with those proceeds, make sure the animals have a nice place, some bigger runs, things like that. And I would like to also bring it over to the marshal's office and allow them to do, I know we have an ACO.
I'm going to give you more time
Go
to
ahead.
elaborate on
Yep.
that, because I want to move into that as just a subject in
Yep, go
itself, okay? Anything else on department heads or employees that you would like to share before we move on?
As I said before, I'd like to just reiterate, everyone's job's safe. There's no one that
you?
that we're trying to move.
First of all,
All right,
Mr. Stansel and I can't really get rid of a department head, just to be clear legally. It takes
That's what I was getting.
so it's really almost it could happen in 2 years if you put another commissioner in place on the west or east end. And that's when you would make that move, which there's rumors, but I'm going to say they're rumors.
Okay, we're going to get into that, actually, we're going to get into working within the commission and some of the rules in
Yep.
just a minute, so
Yep.
you did bring something up. You brought up animal control. I'm going to go to you for a minute and a half, because I know there's a lot of citizens out there, along with when am I going to get my road paved, fixed, and jobs and economic development. We're going to get to all that. So let's go with animal control, where you started into, and we'll just open that door. What say you? What would a Shoust administration look like, and what could the citizens expect with animal control with your administration? Minute and a half.
We're currently training an ACO, Animal Control Officer, from best of my knowledge and what I gathered through meeting with department heads. Pickens County is tending to domestic animals, dogs and cats, and the city of Jasper has an employee that's tending to the equine, cows, horses, things like that. We do need an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Jasper, where the county is getting calls to go tend to things in the city, and they're really not able to do that because there's not one in place. I've already said that I want that. We have a hot tin can sitting up on a hill for those animals. I'd really like to build a new shelter. There's multiple purchasers for that building, and I'd like to bring it to the marshal. From what I understand, the sheriff originally ran on the premises that he was going to start an animal shelter, and somewhere down the line, something went wrong. So there was a disconnect, something. I haven't looked all into it, but basically told the county to run it, or he was going to shut it down. So now it's fell onto the county. And absolutely no kill, period, unless there's a vet that gives a recommendation, it's catastrophic, animals in pain, or, and suffering, something like that.
Minute and a half, Mr. Stansel.
So I absolutely understand the frustrations of many of the citizens when it comes to the animal shelter. I know that they've went from being a higher kill to where essentially right now they are at a no-kill status already. In order to be designated as a no-kill shelter, there's certain criteria they have to meet, and they've, over the last year, already reached that point. Some of the different nonprofit groups that are working with them and doing so much to get dogs and cats adopted out is phenomenal. The amount of volunteer work that's going into there. I think that building a new shelter, if there's a way that it can be done economically with no burden to the taxpayers, I'd support it 100%. I don't believe that there should ever be any risk that there's going to be anything that's going to be thrown on the shoulders of the taxpayers. So that's one of those areas that I think that needs to be watched and monitored closely, and if there's anything that we can do to improve what we have, if it's not going to be economically feasible, that we do exactly that. I do know that we do, as you mentioned, we have land in certain places that there is a way that we could do it, and we can try to move forward. I think that our staff and how they're caring for animals right now over the last year has done incredible, made a complete 180 turnaround in what they're doing. But as far as the enforcement and making sure that the ordinances that they're enforcing are enforceable has been a difficult challenge with changes in the magistrate court, with changes back and forth as to whether or not they could write citations or not. So right now you're having a duplication of services. 911 is receiving the call. They're calling the sheriff's office to go out and respond to the incident. Then the sheriff's office is trying to call and see if they can get an animal control officer to come and respond to the incident, and whether they're available or not dictates that. So I think that we've got to find a way to fix that issue to where we're not spending double time on every call.
You want another 30 seconds on this, or are we good? Are you?
Yeah, sure. One thing I did when I met with the department heads was, from the week I was there, I don't think we even had any animals. They're doing a great job on getting them out, getting them adopted. That was collaborated by Chairman Jones and some other people. Talking about the marshal, though, the marshal was originally started because we were having problems serving FIFAs, things like that. And they're doing a great job with fines on garbage, things like that. But I would like to see them get more of that responsibility of a dedicated, there's calls coming in for malnourishment, abuse, things like that, that we really have someone dedicated to go out there and investigate this stuff. I know the sheriff's office is strapped on manpower, so I think that would be one way to alleviate that and make sure that we're getting these animals protected.
30 seconds? You want another 30 seconds?
I agree. I mean, that's one of the topics that we both agree on.
I want to ask you, and I don't know if you, I don't know if I, did I hear you say whether you would make sure that it's a no-kill?
Yes,
You did say that?
Yeah, absolutely. No
Okay,
kill.
all right, if you said that, okay, I wanted to double check.
Yep.
All right, folks, we're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we're going to move into economic development, roads, bridges, potholes, jobs, a little bit of everything. We're far from done here tonight. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back with our Pickens County Commission Chair debate with Republican candidate Chris Stansel and Independent candidate David Schaus. Take a break.
The North Georgia mountains are truck country, and when you want the lowest Chevy price, Days gets it done. At Days Chevrolet in Jasper, the discounts are deep, the trade values are high, and credit approval couldn't be easier. It's why we're the North Georgia mountains' #1 volume Chevy truck dealer. When it comes to selling Chevys for less, Days Chevrolet in Jasper gets it done.
Days Chevrolet, Days gets it done.
Find new roads.
Circuit World has complete queen bedroom packages at amazing prices. Get this queen bed, dresser and mirror, one nightstand, bedding set, and free 32-inch TV, all for only $1799.99 or $129.99 a month. Or get this complete queen bedroom set and sleep in style, also for only $1799.99 or $129.99 a month. What an incredible deal! Stop in today at one of our 5 locations and get the furniture you've always wanted at Circuit World.
Chevrolet. Days gets it done.
The North Georgia mountains are truck country, and when you want the lowest Chevy price, Days gets it done. At Days Chevrolet in Jasper, the discounts are deep, the trade values are high, and credit approval couldn't be easier. It's why we're the North Georgia mountains' #1 volume Chevy truck dealer. When it comes to selling Chevys for less, Days Chevrolet in Jasper gets it done.
Days Chevrolet. Days gets it done.
Find new roads.
Circuit World has complete queen bedroom packages at amazing prices. Get this queen bed, dresser and mirror, one nightstand, bedding set, and free 32-inch TV, all for only $1799.99 or $129.99 a month. Or get this complete queen bedroom set and sleep in style, also for only $1799.99 or $129.99 a month. What an incredible deal! Stop in today at one of our 5 locations and get the furniture you've always wanted at Circuit World.
Folks, we're back, and we want to thank FetcherNews.com for sponsoring tonight our Pickens County Commission Chair debate. The Republican candidate in the race, Chris Stansel, and the independent candidate, David Schaus. I'm your moderator, Brian K. Pritchard. And, okay, let's move, gentlemen, to what I call getting along with others. How about that? Let's move to that. And I've been thinking about this for at least a week. I read everybody's Facebook page. Good, bad, ugly. I read everybody's stuff, okay, because I believe in keeping up. Let's start number 1. This is a commission. It was touched on earlier. This is a commission. The county charter says that department heads hiring and dismissing is a commission decision. And when you go in as the county manager, you're the day-to-day supervisor, but you have a commission when you go to get things passed. So we'll start with you, Mr. Schaus. How do you feel you'll be able to work within a commission? Do you, and I put it point blank just the way I am, do you understand the sunshine law and what communication you can have with post commissioners? What say you of your relationship and being able to work with the 2 post commissioners that are currently here now, minute and a half?
I'll have no problem at all. I think both of them have their pros, and I've met both of them. I'll get along fine with them. I think I'll bring a little outside perspective, and I think they would agree with that, on finances and ways to bring in revenue streams, and maybe fast track us a little quicker than what we've been moving. Again, without populating, but very, very precise controlled growth. But I'll work fine with them. I work fine with anybody, really. I'll give my points. Ultimately, the chairman kind of splits the votes if there are, makes a decision if there is a split vote. But I'll work fine with them and look forward to it, actually.
What say you? As I said, and I just want to bring it back around, it is a commission. You would be the chair. You would be the day-to-day operations as the county manager, but to move the county forward, I call it getting along. And I'm going to look at the camera, and I said I've been coming here for years, and the current commission gets along that I see to move the county forward. What say you? Do you feel you could be that chairman? How will you work with the current commission?
My entire career, building relationships and working with others has been a top priority in everything that I've done. The current commissioners I've had the opportunity to know most of my life. I've been able to spend a lot of time in a lot of different conversations leading up to today with each of them. So it's working well with them is something that I don't feel would ever be a problem in any way, shape, or fashion. I know that just a few months ago when my opponent was on his Facebook page, he created what was called the Shady Bunch page. And I think that that's going to be something that might be difficult to overcome because one of the current commissioners, one of the current post commissioners was one of the individuals that was put on that page that could affect their relationship that's there. And so I've always tried to do everything that I do on social media or whatever it is to understand that I don't want to jeopardize those relationships that may be necessary to be able to move forward. So I don't have a problem in the least bit with working on that.
Would you like to take a minute and respond to what Mr. Stansel said as far as he called out something you posted saying shady bunch? And we are talking about getting along with the commission to move the county forward.
Yeah, I mean, since it's been brought up, you know, back in the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, if you followed social media, I didn't say much about the sheriff's office. Well, there was members of the sheriff's office giving me the information of why I was attacking Chairman Jones and some other people that was bad information in their effort to try to win this election. So, once I realized who the real villain was in this community, if you'll notice, I went from Republican to Independent to try to keep you out of office and ruining this county. So that's, and men's apologies have been made to those people. In fact, I'll publicly apologize to Chairman Jones right now for some false accusations. I'm not saying he was a saint and made all the right decisions in the world, but I will apologize for some accusations that was given to me from members of your employer.
Would you like to respond to that?
I was waiting to see if you would respond on how you think Mr. Barnes would work with you as far as calling him out on the Shady Bunch, but I'll respond to it that if somebody was feeding you information, they were feeding you information completely independent from me. There was absolutely nothing coming from my side in any way, shape, or fashion. So whatever employee that is, it's as we've dealt with throughout the entire campaign. It's been one accusation and one lie and one partially fed piece of information without all the facts to back it up. So can't really respond to that necessarily, but I'm still curious as to how he would work with Mr. Barnes.
How would you work with Mr. Barnes?
Well, I don't know if you got a hearing problem, but I said I'd apologize to him and made amends. I don't know if you missed that part. Maybe you did. But the apologies have been made. The amends have been made. And at some time, you got to start taking responsibility, man. You've got to start admitting to some stuff. You've been caught in some bold-faced lies from the flyer. You know you had something to do with it. There were people that admitted you knew had something to do with it to try to point it at me. So at some point, which I'd rather talk about economics and all this and this mudslinging, I don't need to compete with Mr. Stansel on who I am. I know what they're doing behind the scenes. I know what some of the deputies are doing. But I'm more worried about the 32,000 people in this community than I am on their little show.
Okay, I want to say I couldn't agree more. We got to move into economic development. But part of that is getting along with others. There's several cities within the county that you have to communicate with. So let me just follow this up, okay? I think many people know that you're not beyond going on social media and typing something. Am I correct there? And from time to time, you can follow your page, and if you feel you have something to say, you say it. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're right.
Okay,
You're absolutely right.
So let me just say that, because just recently, Jasper, the city of Jasper, sent out a tax increase notice. And not even, I think it was 2 days ago, you posted on social media, notice of tax increase. The city of Jasper announced its intentions to increase the 2020 property tax. This seems to be a Stansel supporter as well. You called your opponent out on social media. Why? He can buy him and control him. Glad that's off my chest. You go on to say a lot more. So, I mean, what I'm getting to is you're the one writing that. And if you're the chairman of the county, how can the citizens know that they can depend on you to negotiate with Jasper, whether it's a water, you have a loss coming up, local option sales tax where you have to negotiate. So would you answer that, if elected, how you plan to mend the relationship or repair the relationship with the cities that you've called out publicly?
First of all, if you'll look at my history with the city, I've told them publicly over and over, we had a business dispute on a blockage that cost the citizens. They may not have $576,000 in debt right now if they would approve the steakhouse. I own 515. We'd have more revenue. But I've told them countless times to put the politics aside. Whether I win chairman or not, I'm going to be here. We've got to work for a better future. But when their council members start calling people on my petition list, and they say people that don't even know, because this man asked for the petition with an attorney of the old school families, which probably gave it to other people, because Stansel didn't get it directly. It went to his attorney, because that's who requested it. But you asked for the names of the people that signed a petition. That was pretty hard to get, because they were scared of your office. That was over and over and over. They were scared of your... How would you like to be a citizen in this county and be scared of the sheriff's office in America? That's sad. How would you like to be a county employee and be scared of the sheriff's office? Something's going on. This isn't just a bunch of crazy people making things up. When the stories start aligning, something's going on. But you got the list, and lo and behold, I'll call it out. It's public. Sonny Proctor called people, council member, called people on my petition. I don't think you should be, I can't believe you signed the petition. I can't believe
This is the petition to get your name
to
on the
get my
ballot.
name on the ballot, and that's
Okay.
why it was so hard. I had people come in my office and said, I would love to sign it, but I don't want my name on it. And I could not tell them it wasn't public record. And there was no reason to get it, because you couldn't verify the signatures.
Let's let
So-
him respond. Now, I want to be clear to the audience at home and what you said earlier about mudslinging. My subject here is one of you will be the next chair, and you're going to have a relationship with your commission, your county employees, your department heads, and your city mayors, and so forth, to move the county forward if we do bring up economic development. So the subject matter is getting along. I want to talk about that first, because that was the question. Getting along, moving forward with cities, and the original question there, and what relationship you can have. And then I would like for you to respond to what Mr. Schaus, his comments there. I want to give you time to do that, so we'll do that separately, a minute and a half.
As far as the relationships are concerned, as I mentioned when we were talking about working with the commission, that's been my entire career, is build relationships and try to make sure I know you can accomplish so much more with. If you take a look at the comprehensive plan, the joint comprehensive plan of Pickens County, Jasper, Talking Rock, Nelson, it requires that you work closely together. If you take a look at the way things are zoned for any commercial development, for any retail development, then the vast majority of that property is inside the city limits. So if we're going to see any progress in moving forward economically, it's going to require that relationship. So I think that I have worked very difficult to establish a relationship with each of the different members of the city, both in Jasper and then in Talking Rock and then also in Nelson. I've sat and talked to numerous people to try to make sure we have those relationships established long before coming in, so that we make sure we can move forward as we go. Because if we're going to ever tackle our comprehensive plan, if we're ever going to put our land use plan to use, we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to make sure that we have those relationships fully intact and that there's no more turf wars. I think we've dealt with, for anybody that's lived in Pickens County for any period of time whatsoever, we've dealt with several decades of turf wars that have prevented a lot of things from being able to move forward, and we have the potential to where those turf wars can be put to rest and we can start to move in the right direction, as far as that's concerned.
Okay, would you
Yeah.
like some time to respond?
On the petition, I definitely, yes. If I could.
Would you like to
Yeah.
respond on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
45 seconds, go ahead.
I think, back to always trying to have facts is sometimes an essential thing. Yes, the attorney did send the letter after we had a conversation and we were trying to figure out how many signatures were actually turned on. You went on Fetch Your News immediately after walking out and said you had between 11 and 1,200 signatures. A couple weeks before, you said you had 3 times the amount that was necessary. Nothing added up, even the number of pages, to the 11 and 1,200. So I made the comment, hey, should we request it just so that we can see how many signatures were actually on there? It wasn't to verify, it wasn't to look for the names. He sent the request. He called me when they said it was ready. I drove to the elections office. The attorney never once saw the document. I picked it up, carried it home, sat down and counted them twice. Drove right back to the office because there's a locked recycle shred bin so that nobody could ever have access and put them directly into a shred bin. That way they could never be touched. Sonny Proctor never saw that list. Sonny Proctor never had me have a conversation with him about that list. And I don't know what led him to make that phone call. But I can tell you that there was never another individual that list was shared with. It was viewed by me and me only.
Do you want another 30 seconds?
Yeah, I really don't. It's the people that are mad at you, not me. It is what it is.
Well, they're
but
mad
there's
'cause you don't
93
tell the
pages.
truth.
No, there's 93 pages in the back of my truck right now if you want to go get them. You think I would really give you all the names knowing what you were going to do? You may be the pushover. I'm not. I'm a lot smarter than what you think. Anyways, going back to get along with the city, business is business. I've even said they deserved more SPOS money last time than what they actually settled for, which was, I think they went from 20 to 12%. I've made alliances there. I made alliance, talked to Talking Rock a lot, love Talking Rock, the park, the green space up there. I actually think that there's some grant stuff up there that we can do. They had a grant secured, but they needed, I believe, about 70% matching or something to build a little community center in that grassy area. They've got some great ideas up in Talking Rock. City of Jasper, definitely, I mean, I think Chris is totally wrong that you have to have the city for economics. There's ways around that. If they don't want to partner and they want to continue kind of trying to do their own thing, then that's fine. We can do some other things to finally make Pickens grow, because if you look, he is right about this. Our corridor, the growth, the money's coming from the city because we haven't done anything in the county because we don't have the infrastructure and we haven't thought outside the box to bring in other revenue.
Let's go there. I'm going to start. I'm going to give both of you, because this is big, I'm going to give both of you 2 minutes on this subject, and we'll work back and forth on it. And Mr. Stansel, we'll start with you. Now, I will say this. You know, sometimes I don't want to hear, and I don't think the citizens want to hear, just bring jobs or we want jobs. I want you, and that's why 2 minutes, to dig down in your economic plan for the city, for the county, Pickens County. You mentioned the Joint Comprehensive Plan. You have a Joint Economic Development Authority in this county. Okay, you have an Industrial Development Authority in this county. You have the Chamber of Commerce, okay, which I think you chaired for 2 years, am I correct? 3 years? Yes. So you know all the moving parts, okay? Right. You have infrastructure. We have 515 that ends right here, 575 Ball Ground turns into 515. We got the traffic, the people, the opportunity. Now put all that together and tell us, what does a Chris Stansel economic plan look like?
Right. I think part of it's to understand the role, understand what we're running for. We're running to be the chairman of the Board of Commissioners, not to be the chief developer. We're running to be able to step into the role that helps set the rules and sets the regulations and make sure that it's a fair, level playing field for development within our county. That we're making sure everybody that comes in has to follow exactly the same thing when you're going, and create a welcoming environment by doing that. For the first time in many, many years, the Joint Development Authority, the Joint Economic Task Force between the city and the Jasper and the county, has hired an economic developer to come in. Their whole job is to try to market our county, to try to market it, to get it out in front of businesses. So I think supporting those individuals, but you also have to remember, it requires the landowners, the developers, and entrepreneurs that are going to be the ones that bring business into the county. If you remember Ellijay, everybody wants to talk about the success that Ellijay saw. There was a landowner that literally moved a mountain to make that occur. That they took and moved dirt for years until Walmart and Longhorn and all the different things that were there. There was a landowner that was an entrepreneur that worked closely with the city there to be able to develop it, but without him taking that step to be able to go forward, it never would have occurred. So I think that it's important to understand that the real economic development in a capitalist society, which is what we all want to live in, I hope, and it's definitely what I want to live in, is to ensure that we create opportunity for these landowners and for these developers and for these entrepreneurs to create business, to bring business. But it's not our job to develop it as government. Our job is not to compete with developers. Our job is to ensure that we create an environment that they can come and develop in. So making sure that those rules are they're 100% in play and in place. Making sure that we're supporting our economic developer and we're holding them accountable. I know that there's a joint committee that oversees that individual, and that they're able to make sure that they are following through with their outreach. They're working with the state, they're working with the Economic Development Office, so that anytime projects that could be suitable for us come up, that they have the resources in place to make sure that that's done.
Same 2 minutes, and I want to add in there, not to leave it out on your question, but I want to add in there, you have an airport, you have an airport authority, you have a water authority here. You are looking at a new water treatment plant for the for the county. I keep saying that for the county. So with 2 minutes, discuss a Shoust economic plan for the citizens of Pickens County.
Well, the sewer and water right now, we just got Grandview. It's going to add another 330,000 gallons a day. Right now, we're bringing in we really need a looped water system for the county. We're totally using about 600,000 gallons a day. 400,000 comes from Bartow at $1.40 something a gallon. 280,000 up to 280,000 can come from Cherokee at $2.42 a gallon. So obviously, buying water is costing us a lot of money. We serve about 3,000 customers right now. Like I said, the Grandview project's going to give us about 330,000 more gallons. One thing we have done is cut our water loss. Since you're talking that, we went from 33% water loss to 6% overall. I'd like to partner with the city of Jasper on a sewer. They need a lot of money right now. Cherokee County's got their sewer water's not even affiliated with the commissioners and the government. It's a separate identity. They need a lot of money to run another discharge pipe down past the high school. They need some more growth. If they don't, then we cannot be held hostage by them. We're going to have to look at packaged sewers. I particularly, if you want to talk about economics and my number one driver, I don't think Pickens County is not a tourist town. It's not a destination town. We don't have the rivers. We don't have the lakes. We don't have the zip lines, so on and so forth. If you want to think outside the box, you make this a park and rec town, community. You go down somewhere around 108, which there's 2 owners willing to give land to the county. You build a mega park. You cater to travel ball. The next thing you know, you have hotels, motels, motel tax. First thing that happens when parents come into town is they go to Walmart and spend $500. We live off SPLOST. SPLOST money's what we live on. They're spending $500. They go to the park from 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night. They go back to their hotel rooms. They rent VRBOs and big canoe for $10,000 for the week, split them with their families, and then they're gone. It didn't bring more population, but it brings a tremendous amount of money. And the way you do this park is you go down, which I've already laid the foundation, you go partner with a private identity. They actually will sign a lease. They will sign paperwork that says, hey, we're going to give you $50 million over 10 years for the weekend use of your park to have these big tournaments. And that's the way you start changing this community. Now we're not building buildings. Now, I do believe...
I'm going to give you, I want to get more time on economic development. I want to go back to you, give you another minute and a half on this subject. I understand what you're saying is you create an environment. You're the CEO, the county manager. You have to operate the county, and you create the environment. Is there not some things what would be your vision of a plan for development here, bringing jobs to the area, and how involved would you be? I understand it's the economic development director that's a neutral position. But is there not, but you do split that with the city of Jasper. The cost is split in half with the city of Jasper. So the citizens' property tax pays for half of that, and then you do get, you do have an agreement with the chamber, I'm not for sure, on hotel motel tax, right, in the county?
On the tourism.
On the tourism, right. There's vested interest from chamber, which economic development, the Industrial Development Authority, there's vested interest from everybody. So would you like to elaborate a little more or talk a little more about how you see growing the economy?
I think one of the biggest things is diversified, not to put literally all your eggs in one basket, but to try to have a diversified approach to where you're working with developers for retail. You're also working to try to help bring industrial. You're trying to bring in manufacturing. You're trying to spread that out. If we can get into the tech market where some of those jobs relocate north as our education system and as fiber becomes more and more available, then it puts less of a commute time, and some of these businesses that want to get out of Alpharetta, they can find a safe haven to come here. So as we develop those parks and we start to put that together. As far as being directly involved and being willing to go and sit down, absolutely. I would be as involved as possible, but I don't believe it's the role of the chairman to be the developer. I think it's the role of the chairman to go and roll out the red carpet, to be able to sit down and explain everything that we have, everything that we have to offer, everything that we have to provide them, and then to create the environment where it's there. That way they understand the simple clear-cut rules, regulations, everything, all the policies and all the procedures to where they can then go through and build. I do believe that something like a park is an incredible idea, but at the same time, when you're climbing into bed with somebody that's willing to offer to spend millions of dollars with the promise of money in return, I believe it needs to be investigated thoroughly by the full commission. I don't think that that's something that one person needs to go out and do. I think that the commission would need to be able to sit and evaluate and take a look that we're not going to get ourselves into a situation with one particular entity that if they pull the plug and they pull out and go, then you're stuck with what they left behind, and then the taxpayers have to shoulder that burden. So
I'll give you another 2 minutes, Mr. Schaus, because I want to follow up something you said. You know, we had an interview about 3 weeks ago, you and I, and when I just asked you the basic question on, you know, why are you running, if I remember correctly, you said you looked at the joint comprehensive plan. You were a part of the 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, am I correct? So 10 years ago, you were a part of putting that joint comprehensive plan for the county together. And you said, not to quote you, but you said in the interview, you looked at that, and then you looked at where the county's at now, and you weren't happy with it. Am I going down the right road?
yeah.
Okay, so a joint comprehensive plan, what would you see, what did you see in that plan you weren't satisfied with that needs to happen in this county?
So in that plan, when we were
Right.
going through it, there were several different things. Economic development in both 10 years ago and in the current year became
Right.
one of the top drivers. It was one of the top discussed topics that they felt like that this was not something that was ever taken as priority. Parks and Recreation came in number 2. I mean, they were taking a look at improvements on the parks, creating walk spaces to where it was not just in the Parks and Recreation for organized sports, but whether there were sidewalks and there were bike paths and there were other things to promote and to keep an active lifestyle. Those were things that were brought up during both of those. Infrastructure was number 3. Or it may have been roads. It was somewhere back and forth. Roads and infrastructure were back and forth. But infrastructure with having water and sewer, I mean, we've had the opportunity now for years to be able to take advantage of a joint governmental agreement in Carter's Lake to run the pipe and create our treatment center to where we can provide the water that we need for our county without buying it, that we can get that permit and so a way less than one-time fee to be able to put that in place to start piping the water in to where we can get water. I think that that's something. We're in the 21st century and we still have zero sewage in our entire county. I do believe we've got to explore whether it's working and partnering with the city, who's recently been able to get approval from the EPA to double the expansion of their plant. We've got to be able to find, is there a way we can partner with them to help push that water, push that sewage opportunity out into certain areas within the county so that we've got that? Or, like you mentioned, or do we start looking at the package plants? Do we start looking at partnering with the company that serves Big Canoe in the foothills area and providing sewer in that area? So that way we can make sure that we're providing infrastructure opportunities. Those were some of the categories that definitely jumped up.
Mr. Schaus, 2 minutes, and we are pushing up on time, but we can stay here a little bit and get a couple more subjects in, but I don't want to close off your economic plan that you were sharing, so I'll give you another 2 minutes on
just
that.
finishing up with those parks, there's proven places across the country, Hoover, Alabama, Knoxville, Tennessee, Myrtle Beach, Gulf Shores. When parents go on these trips, you play year-round ball. These companies are multi-million-dollar companies now doing this. They're very seasoned pros. They've got a lot of money behind them. Parents don't want to go down to Panama and Myrtle Beach and things in July, but that's the only place they have the fields. You build the fields here, you start seeing a lot more economic things. You see the restaurants you want. You see the candy stores and the breweries and things like that thriving because we're bringing people to them. And it's okay on the day that they don't play in our town to go up to Blue Ridge and LJ and spend their money on the rivers and the lakes. But that's not, like Mr. Stansel said, all my eggs in one basket. That's just one thing I bring to the table. I also have a lot of connections, and I would never step on the economic developers, but I can open some serious doors. We have one company right now that's wanting to build about 150,000 square foot building, employ 125, 130 people. They're in distribution. They pay $25 an hour. They're a Fortune 100 company. They want to come here. One little side note on Pickens County, we're the furthest county north that you can go with shipping in e-commerce, and the whole southeast is one-day ground. So you go to Gilmer County, and if you want to compete with a commerce provider in Pickens County, you have to pay overnight shipping to get it there at the same time. So that's a big thing that we can kind of offer to people, that we're the last stop north, and 575 is pretty convenient to Atlanta. But I have the ability to pick up the phone and get these people here. They want to come here, but right now when they look on Facebook and they look in the county and they look at the history, they're scared and hesitant to come here. Those companies that I plan on bringing here, another cold storage company, there's a cold storage company on Fulton Industrial, the next closest one's at Ottawa, Tennessee. They want to come here. They build huge buildings because they're a lot of money, and they rent small spaces to Stofers and Pillsbury, and that's where they go get their product to restock the stores. They want to come here, and again, they don't really need sewer. They just need bathrooms, and they buy big enough parcels that their buildings blocked by trees, they're out of sight, out of mind, but you employ 200 or 300 people in this community at $25 an hour, you all of a sudden made the unaffordable house affordable, the unaffordable car affordable, and you've also developed some very quality, like changed their lives. You've put good jobs in without having to put that infrastructure in, and those deals are out there. We just got to go get them.
We have a couple subjects we cannot leave tonight without addressing for the citizens out there and folks at home. I want to apologize for maybe not putting the time in these subjects that I feel is needed. Roads. You know, originally in Georgia, this position used to be called road commissioner. That was the original name of it, road commissioner. And, you know, roads, number one, and your county has 420 miles of paved road, and you have 50 miles of dirt road. I will look at the camera and I will say, when I have been asked if I would ever run for one of these positions, I've always said, if you think I'm going to take phone calls all day, somebody telling me their road needs repaired, no. Are you ready for that? You're the first up. 1 minute. Roads, bridges in this county, repairing potholes, paving. What say you to the citizens out there where their roads are concerned in Pickens County?
First, I'd like to say that department heads working very hard to try to fix a lot of these conditions with the bridges and roads. These processes are long processes. Grants, approvals from the DOT, approval from the EPA, we have trout streams, all kinds. So it's not just snap your fingers, the bridge is broke, let's fix it. So we need to give credit that they are working hard to fix these issues, but we can't just dump millions and millions of dollars without raising taxes to fix them all at once. We have 50 more miles of gravel road to pave. One of the big complaints I do hear is, I guess sometime back when there was some projects built that roads were promised to be taken over by the county or city or whatnot, and there's a lot of issues out there that just need to be put to rest, whether we take them, whether we don't take them. I don't know. That's something for attorneys to work out, but I get that a lot. My road's supposed to be, we need to go through and absolutely make sure that the citizens know what's county, what's private. But we also have some very major paving projects coming up. 5 going north, off 136. I mean, those are big stretches of road that we're going to have to start budgeting for. My goal is to, put as much money as we can towards the roads. But we've got some issues to face, and hopefully with more revenue coming from bigger businesses that we're going to bring here, and Parks and Rec income, things like that, sales tax, motel, hotel tax, things like that make the other departments and devices easier to fund. We'll be able to put more money towards the roads. And I really think we need a full-time grant writer in the county to chase those grants.
All right, to get for...
Absolutely.
Right.
It's a long process.
What say you? Do I need to repeat that? Are you good? Okay.
I think right now is probably the best we've ever been in roads. It's been, as we've gone through a campaign, as looking at a road commissioner title, typically that was the #1 complaint all the time. With the use of the SPLOST over the last 4 years, whether anybody agreed with it or not, but the amount of money that was taken from SPLOST and applied toward paving roads, and then the amount that's been applied for the upcoming 6 years, we've been able to move forward and start to do numerous projects that are there. That statement sounds great if your road's paved. That statement doesn't sound very great if you're sitting on a road full of potholes and it's full of dirt, then you're thinking that the roads are nowhere near what they need to be at that time, and I fully understand that we're not there. We haven't reached the finish line. We have some individuals that live on dirt roads that want to keep their roads dirt roads because they don't want the traffic that comes with a paved road. I've had multiple recently come up and say, do not ever pave my road if you're elected. I want to make sure this stays dirt, stays private, stays quiet. So I think we have to make sure that we honor that. We have to make sure that we're looking forward. And we have to understand that a lot of these things, the right-of-way just never was set up. Some of these roads that were built back in the early 1900s, they didn't grant the right-of-way, so it's going to require access to right-of-way from every landowner along those property lines in order to ensure that you can get those roads paved. And working through that process. And I think just continuing to be upfront, transparent with all the people that live along those roads and making those phone calls and sitting down with them if they do want to see their road paved, that we start tackling those projects one at a time and continue to invest in them.
We're going to have to stay with the next two questions, a hard 30 seconds, but there are things I want you to look at the camera and talk to the voters out there. Start with you, okay? How available will you be to the citizens? Will you have an open door policy? Things like roads and repairs, and people want to talk about maybe their culvert needs cleaned out, whatever. How available will you be to the citizens, and do you have a plan for an open door policy?
Right.
Go ahead.
Absolutely, open door policy. I plan on being 100% available to citizens to come in. I'm not opposed to listening to opposing views and to hear complaints and to sit as something I've done for the last dozen years. So it's something that I'm used to on a regular basis. We'll be available by phone. We'll make sure that we're calling back and make sure that we're following through with all the different issues that come up, whether it's a direct phone call or if it's getting emails into the hands of the people that need to get there. But I will be available in person.
You, 30 seconds.
I'm already available in person. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed at 1. So, I mean, my phone's always on. I'm always around town. Obviously, I won't be so much out on my own time anymore, but the door will always be open. The phone will always be on. I think one of the things I'm looking forward to after the election's over is getting rid of some social media, but I do think, I know Chris says that he doesn't really communicate through it or whatever, but I do want to utilize the social media. And another thing I want to do in the county, our citizens seem, I want to open up communication better to make sure that on our website, that if they're having a problem with their road or they're having a problem with trash on their road, that it's very simple for them, or a water meter leaking, they can just go, click, put the ticket in, it's emailed to the proper department head and he can disperse it. But it's also tracked where we know. I get a lot of, well, I called so-and-so 6 months ago. I don't want that anymore. I want some accountability that we know we're taking care of our citizens.
30 seconds. We'll start with you. Let's try to stay in the 30 seconds. The budget is coming up, the budget negotiations and open meetings to the public. Will you attend all of them, review the budget? Because the budget that is passed with this commission, you, if elected, and yourself, if elected, will operate under. So will you attend all the budget hearings and meetings for next year's budget?
Absolutely.
All right. Yourself?
Absolutely.
Okay. 30 seconds. When we talk about freedom of speech, okay, and citizens wishing to speak, will you continue to have a policy that at the meetings, that the meetings will be open and citizens will be allowed to express themselves in a way to the commission?
Yeah, 100%. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in giving opportunities. I think that you need to add additional opportunities. I think quarterly town hall meetings where we provide opportunities for people to come and voice their concerns and be heard. In a monthly board meeting, there's so much business that has to be done. A lot of times that gets hurried and they're not able to voice concerns quite as often. So creating additional opportunities as well.
Do I need to repeat that?
No, I'm fine. I don't believe in censorship. I believe we need to add more opportunities as well, including in our board meetings and such, utilizing current technology maybe to allow people that can't be here to use Zoom and even chime in that way. I don't know the legalities of it, but I want to use every tool at our disposal to make sure that we're hearing from our citizens. At the end of the day, I'm not the boss. They're really the boss. Chris and I, whoever wins, are representing them for what they need us to do. And yeah, we do use our judgment sometimes on, which direction we need to go. But ultimately, our job is to make our citizens happy, feel safe, and have an environment that they want to live in.
30 seconds. Will you continue to have department head meetings monthly? Will you continue to have workshops as they're now and keep it to one meeting a month? I think this county has one meeting a month with the commission. Do you look at keeping the same workshops, department head meeting, and calendar that it's currently under?
I think that goes back to the commissioners are a cohesive unit, and it's something that we need to decide together. If we're not going in the direction that and things aren't moving smoothly, then we probably need to have more meetings. If our department heads are doing everything we want with 110% and our phones aren't ringing with problems, then that's probably fine. I think that's something we've just got to, once we get in office, see how things are flowing and see how much communication we do need with them. I will tell you this, that our chairman now probably talks to each department head 7 to 8 times, a day, based upon my meetings.
So I need to repeat that?
Yeah, absolutely. With as far as the commissioners meeting and having their regular board meetings and their work session, 100% keep it the same. Unless as a commission, there's a decision to try to expand or change and move the times. Meeting with department heads, I believe, is something that you need to be continuously involved in. I would move it to more than a monthly meeting by far, to where you're trying to at least once a week ensuring that you're up to date on what projects are going on, that they have an opportunity to ask questions, and if they have any needs, that they can get met when they're there. So I think that those need to take place as often as possible.
Okay, folks, that brings us to our final question of the night. We're running a little long. We appreciate you staying with us. And this final question, we're going to start with Mr. Stansel. And what we do to close is we allow both candidates to ask each other a question. So, Mr. Stansel, your question for Mr. Schaus tonight.
Right. So, David, I know that as we've run for office, I think a lot of what people look at us in the way that we campaign is how they're going to look at us in the way that we run office. And we've talked about relationships, we've talked about those different things. What we've seen through social media, and at least once in person, was the reactions to people that say things that you don't agree with or that say things negative, the reactions and the responses that they get. Is that what people can expect of you when they come to you with a problem and with something that you don't agree with?
Minute and a half.
Generally not. I think you've done the same thing, but y'all went around the back sly doing it. I'm just folding in your face. Sometimes, your people down there antagonizing another candidate and then calling me out. That's what he got. So generally, I'm about as most docile and as approachable. One of the biggest compliments I've heard during this whole campaign is when people actually come in my office and take the chance to meet me, unlike a lot of your peers that do badmouth me. They see how laid back I am and just how receptive I am. My mind goes a million miles an hour. I'm always thinking, and I'm always listening to people talking to me, because you never know when someone's got a better idea than you. But at the same time, sometimes people just, it's not all, you've got to have a backbone, not a wishbone. And over here is a backbone. I will fight for this county. I will fight for what's right. And I'm not that pushover guy. I'm just not. I'm being honest.
Sorry about that. 30 seconds to respond.
As far as a backbone, I've went to domestic calls, I've made arrests, I've done everything in the world to defend our community for the last dozen years. I don't fear being called names any more than anything. I've represented with a backbone 100%. All of the different accusations of my people going around and doing things have been done completely independent. If anything was ever done, it was not with any knowledge of mine whatsoever. If it were, I would 100% own it. I would take it with no doubt whatsoever.
Final 30 seconds. You want?
It's pointless.
Okay. Mr. Schaus, what question do you have for Mr. Stansel.
Yeah, and I asked this genuinely if I was a voter, from my, and as an owning a business. When I look at your website timeline, it seems that you really haven't held any kind of job for a length of time outside of the sheriff's office. I see that you oversee hiring, and I'm not meaning this in any derogatory way, but I see that you're in charge of the hiring. You've had a staffing problem. Presumably, I don't know if it's pay or picking the wrong people. You kind of, say you oversee the budget, which I believe it was changed. I'm pretty sure, which to my knowledge is a disaster. You use taxpayer time and money as an event planner for a private organization, which you know is wrong. Even one email is wrong on our dime. And more importantly, there's so much tension that I saw between your current employer and the county offices. How can the citizens of this county really think you're capable of leading a $30 million budget and representing them fairly?
So the way you went around that, I don't know how many different ways to try to approach that answer.
It's the track record.
One, I'm not the sheriff, and I don't run the sheriff's office. The sheriff runs the sheriff's office. If the sheriff instructs me to do something, if he instructs me to do things that are within the bounds of what other sheriffs, I think in the state of Georgia alone in the last 9 years, there have been over 300 events raising over $4 million for youth events, which our sheriff has followed along and continued that trend. My hours that were paid, I'm an exempt salaried employee. The log that you got a hold of was an accountability log that was nothing but to show whenever I signed out to go do anything that was campaign related, so they didn't dictate my pay in any way, shape, or fashion. So those particular things are things that are just accusations, like what the rest of the night has been. As far as managing the budget, I have continuously tried to follow and do everything that I felt was right in any organization. If you look through any place that I've ever worked, I've been able to move through the ranks. We hit a difficult economy time. I left one job to pursue going to seminary. Things didn't work out. I know I've been called a failure in all these other parts of my life, but the one part that I actually would call the failure in my life would have been when I went to seminary, and it's the one part you've not actually called me out on, so I do appreciate that. Well, we came back and had to start over. It was as if we were back to being 19 and newly married with kids and trying to figure out a way to start our career over. I did for a couple of years and went back to public service, where I've stayed and where I've continued to work and where I've continued to serve my community, and I will continue to serve my community. Win, lose, or draw in this race, I will continue to serve my community. That's something I feel led and feel passionate about, and will continue to do it all the way through.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, he still didn't say how you were capable of leading this county and looking over this budget. You expressed something there. I don't think you understand commingling. When you send an email from an office that you're representing a private organization, you're putting me, the taxpayer, liable. Something goes wrong down there. When you have a timesheet, salary or not, that some of your hours were, whether they were used for the salary or not, you're there and it exists. You give it to any attorney and see what they do if someone gets hurt down there. I don't think you understand liability commingling, but you need to tell us why you're capable. Can you negotiate contracts? Can you bring stuff here? Do you know the difference between crusher run and 57s? Do you know the difference between 400 pipe and 600 pipe? To be able to look at bids and put them together. I don't think you do.
That's a lot of extra questions he did ask.
It's one question. Tell me why you're capable.
I'm gonna tell you, you can move it up to a minute if you would like.
All I want to know is how you're capable.
Okay.
Not a nice guy.
Okay. 1 minute.
I am very capable. I have led multiple divisions. I have led different organizations. I have led budgets, whether it was at the Chamber of Commerce and the one aspect of our budget through the Sheriff's Office that I've been responsible. So I do know how to operate and how to run a budget. I do know how to operate and how to oversee people. I do know how to manage people. I know how to care for people. I think that's one of the biggest things, is I can take care of employees because I know how to care for people. 100%, put it all out there. As far as the specifics in construction, no, I'm not a contractor. I didn't apply for a job to be a contractor. I will work closely with the staff and with the department heads that we have to make sure that we're following through with every single detail that we've got. I went through and did the certified public manager training and became certified through the Carl Vinson Institute to become a certified county manager, where we studied 100% how to do county budgets. We studied how to go through and do performance evaluations. We studied how to run the day-to-day operations of a county that's very different from the day-to-day operations of a self-employed business.
Okay, folks, that concludes our question and answer segment of our debate tonight. We are going to move into our closing statements. Our first closing statement tonight comes from Chris Stansel. Go ahead, Mr. Stansel.
So I have came into this race about 2 years ago, originally running in the primary election, and I came into it with my integrity fully intact. I know that I've taken one accusation and one lie after another thrown in my direction, but I will leave this race with my integrity still fully intact. I've came into this caring for my community. I've came into this with a track record and a history of being a public servant, which is what I will continue to do if elected. I didn't come into this race with baggage that includes a long arrest record, multiple foreclosures, or an inability to pay my taxes on time. I didn't come into this race with any of those things. I came in fighting to protect my community. I will continue to do so in a conservative way, to fight for our family values, for our way of life as citizens of Pickens County, to build stronger relationships with all of the different entities that work within our community. I came into this race so that I could be a servant of the citizens who elect to serve. I believe that they have chose other servants in their other constitutional offices, and I will work closely to ensure that I'm working and fighting with them the entire time. I will fight to ensure that our community is met with professionalism and respect and an ability to be able to be heard from without being attacked. I came in with the ability to protect our citizens from those who want to gain for themselves. I came in to ensure that we're providing the best quality of life by creating the most beautiful community we can. So I'm Chris Stansel, and I am the Republican candidate. I'm running for chairman of the Board of Commissioners, and I would love to ask for your prayers, for your support, and for your vote in November. I'd like to thank you for your willingness to tune in tonight, and thank you for your willingness to sit and watch this. And I'd like to thank Fetch Your News for being willing to host it and put this together.
Okay, now our closing statement tonight, Mr. David Schaus. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is thank Chairman Jones for serving for 16 years to this county. I think he all in all did a pretty good job, and to give 16 years of his life when he could have done other things to serve these citizens is admirable. You know, I'm not running. When I started this whole process 2 years ago, just like I fought for projects in this community, from the VA to DaVita to multiple private companies that we don't talk about, I have done everything in my power to do what was right for the community, to bring community assets to the community that serve our citizens. I never started to run because Tasha smiles at me or anything like that. I ran for 32,000 people. Ronald Reagan once said that the future doesn't belong to the lighthearted, it belongs to the brave. I personally, as he said, I think it's time for us to tear down the walls that's held Pickens County back, from our youth not being able to have jobs, to our infrastructure, to our parks and rec, to our fire and EMS, and the list goes on and on. Together, in a very controlled manner, we can keep our population down, we can enhance our infrastructure, we can lower our taxes, create better jobs, and improve our amenities. We can be that county that everyone admires. I just humbly ask you, every voter here, to consider your future, your children's future, and vote for me. I will fight for you, and I will fight for what's right for this county.
Thank you, and that concludes our Pickens County Commission Chair debate. I've been your moderator, Brian K. Pritchard. Let me go over a little information before we close. Don't forget, October 5th is your last day to register to vote. Early voting begins October 12th. Saturday, there'll be one Saturday, October 24th, for voting. Tuesday, November 3rd is Election Day. If you have any questions in Pickens County, where is my precinct to vote, or anything about your registration, don't hesitate to call them at 706-253-8781. Gentlemen, as we always say, thank you. We wish you well in your campaign, and thank you for your willingness to serve the county. Don't forget, folks, I do a morning show, 8 to 10 a.m. every day, right here on FYNTV.com. So 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. You could tune in to our morning show on fyntv.com. And also, we will be hosting election night coverage, live coverage, election night, November 3rd from 8 to 12 midnight. I didn't think I stayed up that late. I don't know. But we'll be up to midnight with you for election coverage. Again, thank you very much. You can find this to share with your friends on fyntv.com. You can also go to our YouTube channel, FYNTV, Fetch Your News YouTube channel, Election 2020 playlist. You can find the debate there, share it with your friends, and we hope we have brought you information so you can decide who you want to be your next Pickens County chairman. We're out. Good night.